In the United States, the housing crisis does not start with a disaster. It starts with a normal person realizing their paycheck is not enough to buy safety, not comfort, not luxury. Safety, a door that stays yours next month, a place you can keep when life gets messy. And that is the part that makes people angry in a way they cannot even explain anymore. Because this country was built on the promise that work creates stability. But the housing market has turned that promise into a trap. You open listings and the prices do not feel like prices. They feel like warnings. You do not ask, "Do I like this place?" You ask, "Will I be allowed to exist here?" And then the process begins. Application fees, background checks, credit score checks, proof of income, proof of employment, proof that you will not become a problem. And after all that, you can still lose. Not because you did anything wrong, because the line behind you is endless. So a viewing does not feel like a viewing. It feels like a job interview where everyone is pretending not to be desperate. People stand in hallways holding folders. People avoid eye contact because eye contact makes it real. Everyone knows the same brutal rule. This is not about who needs a home. It is about who looks safest to pick. And the rejections rarely come as a conversation. They come as silence. No call back, no email, no explanation. Just the feeling that you were erased before you were even seen. That is what makes the American housing crisis so humiliating. It turns adults into applicants begging for normal life. And it doesn't just take money. It takes choices. You see the choices disappear one by one. A couple delays a baby because they can't promise a room. A worker refuses a better job because moving is too risky. A family stays in a bad situation because leaving would mean losing their address. People stop making life decisions based on what they want. They make them based on what they can survive. And survival changes the shape of a home. A living room becomes a bedroom. A bedroom becomes shared space. A kitchen table becomes an office. A closet becomes storage for a life that no longer fits. A bunk bed isn't a clever space-saving idea. It's the cost of existing. A fold-down desk isn't a minimalist choice. It's the last surface left for your life to function. Storage walls aren't aesthetic. They're evidence that the home is too small for the life inside it. These aren't solutions. They're coping. Because the alternative isn't something better. The alternative is losing the address. And in the United States, losing the address can mean falling fast. A few missed payments, a rent increase, a lease not renewed, a landlord who decides they want someone else. And suddenly, the line between housed and unhoused doesn't feel like a line. It feels like a crack in the floor. That's the fear people are tired of carrying. Because it's not only the poorest people who feel it, it's workers, parents, students, caregivers, people who are doing exactly what society told them to do. And the shock comparison is simple. In a country that can produce more wealth than almost anywhere else, millions of people are living one step away from losing shelter. A full-time job can still come with the quiet threat of sleeping somewhere temporary, not as a rare tragedy, as a normal risk. And when that risk becomes normal, people don't build a future anymore. They brace. So why does it feel like this? Not slogans, not blame, just repeating forces. First, demand concentrates where life concentrates. Jobs, hospitals, schools, services, transport corridors. Too many people are pulled into the same areas, while housing supply does not expand fast enough. The result is a choke point, a bottleneck that forces people into smaller lives. Second, the entry barrier is designed to filter. The system checks your credit score, your history, your income, your references. Not because everyone is evil, because scarcity makes everyone defensive. When housing is scarce, the power shifts. Landlords can be picky, renters become grateful, and gratitude is not stability, it's vulnerability. Third, costs and constraints slow down supply. Building costs are rising. Insurance costs are rising in many places. Interest rates change, permits and approvals can take a long time. Infrastructure capacity can limit what gets built, even when land exists. So supply does not arrive where people need it, or at the speed life demands. Fourth, housing behaves like a financial asset. When homes become investment vehicles, prices can detach from wages. Once they detach, the local worker becomes the weakest bidder in their own community. This isn't a moral accusation. It's what happens when shelter is priced like a product. Now add the reality many people feel but struggle to talk about without it turning ugly: emergency shelter pressure. The United States has a complex system of shelters and services that are often run locally, with funding that can be stretched thin even in normal times. When people arrive at the border seeking asylum, or when humanitarian arrivals increase, they may need immediate shelter and basic services in the entry areas. That can add local strain to emergency systems that were already overloaded. It can tighten the lowest cost options near those systems. But it does not explain the entire housing crisis. The crisis is larger than any single factor. It is a shortage, a cost spiral, and a power imbalance that was built over time. Still, when the system is already stretched, any added pressure becomes more visible, and people feel it. And when people feel pressure, they look for someone to blame. That is how anger spreads. Not because people are hateful by default, because they feel trapped and unheard, because they feel like they are being asked to compete for survival. Now, what is the government doing? On paper, there are programs. There are housing vouchers that help some low-income families afford rent. There are public housing authorities trying to maintain aging housing stock. There are tax credit programs designed to incentivize the building of affordable rental homes. There are homelessness response programs that fund shelters and services. There are local and state efforts to change zoning rules, speed permitting, and allow more housing types. There are announcements about building, investing, accelerating, reforming. So yes, programs exist, funding exists, plans exist, but people do not live on paper. They live in outcomes. And the outcomes many Americans recognize are still the same. The listings are still impossible. The viewings are still crowded. The requirements still feel humiliating. The fear is still inside the body. Because a voucher is not a home if there is nothing available to rent. A program is not a key if construction takes years. A policy statement is not shelter when your lease ends next month. And this is what the public is getting tired of. Not tired of hearing about the crisis, tired of living inside it, tired of being told it's normal to spend your life chasing stability. Tired of hearing just move as if moving doesn't cost money, time, childcare, job security, and dignity. Tired of watching the system demand endless proof that you deserve to be housed. People expected that work would buy safety. They expected that renting would be a bridge, not a cliff. They expected that a country this rich could manage the basics. And when those expectations collapse, trust collapses with them. So the housing crisis becomes something bigger than housing. It becomes a national mood, a constant background fear, a pressure that makes everyone sharper, quieter, more suspicious, more exhausted. And the darkest part is what happens next. When instability becomes normal, people stop building futures. They stop taking risks. They delay family. They accept less life. They shrink, not because they want less, because the system trained them to live smaller. So here's the question that should make people uncomfortable. If shelter in the United States has become a competition, who gets to win a home? And what happens to everyone who keeps losing? Subscribe to follow this series, country by country. This is not one place. It is a pattern. If this felt real, hit like. And tell me in the comments, what was the first thing housing took from you? Money, time, dignity, or the feeling that you're safe? Subscribe because the next country is worse in a different way.